I need to do some more research, but I'd say B. So next up is Malaysia and Indonesia. So they are very, very close in terms of geographical location. And I know the culture as well is somewhat similar. Malaysia is a bit more sort of up to date in terms of technology, and they're a lot closer to the Western sort of standard of living. And they have a lot more variety in terms of religion and ethnicities and all of these kinds of things. So they are separate, and I have had so many recommendations to go visit Malaysia and live there as well. You know, for both of these countries, there's a lot of positives. The weather, the food, the people, extremely hospitable and friendly. You know, some of the friendliest people in the world. A lot of them speak English, in particular Malaysia, a lot of them speak English. However, I do have some concerns, and I think that from what I've heard, and this isn't a coincidence, I've heard this a lot, that in these countries,
Assalamualaikum, Elsa di sini. Hai guys, hai semua, halo tetangga. Gimana kabar teman-teman semua? Semoga semoga bahagia selalu, dan semoga hari teman-teman semua selalu good day. Selamat datang di channel YouTube Asya Widianti Putri. Oke, kemarin kita udah sempat membahas kalau Malaysia itu negara terbaik untuk hijrah. Nah, ini ada video yang masih berkaitan yang bernama Yahya. Nah, ini dia mengatakan kalau Malaysia itu negara terbaik nomor 2 untuk jadikan tempat berhijrah bagi umat muslim yang berada di luar negara. Kenapa bisa Malaysia nomor 2 nih? Kira-kira siapa nomor satunya? Karena di video sebelumnya, angkal-angkal yang udah diwawancara mengatakan bahwa Malaysia tuh paling terbaik, paling istimewa untuk dijadikan tempat berhijrah. Tapi Bang Yahya ini mempunyai pendapat yang berbeda. Dia mendapatkan Malaysia itu nomor 2. Kenapa alasannya? Nanti kita lihat sama-sama video seperti apa. Tapi sebelum dimulai video reactionnya, seperti biasa aku mau ngajakin teman-teman semua dulu untuk subscribe channel ini dan aktifkan lonceng notifikasinya supaya tidak ketinggalan updatean terbaru dari channel ini. Dan bagi teman-teman yang mau request, bisa banget DM di Instagram aku di @asyawidiantiputri. Yaudah, tanpa berlama-lama, tanpa membuang masa, jumlah kita mulai video reactionnya. Are you ready? Let's go.
So the country that I'm making hijrah to is Assalamualaikum. So today I will be ranking Muslim countries in order of where I think is best for hijrah, and this is all from the perspective of a Muslim revert. Now,
nih guys, sebelum dilanjut, ini adalah berdasarkan dari sudut pandang dia ya guys. Jadi dia udah merasakan, mungkin dia juga udah banyak berkeliling-keliling ke negara-negara muslim lainnya, menghormati apa yang dia sampaikan karena ini adalah perspektif dia tentang Malaysia.
The perspective of someone of a certain country, maybe their ethnicity is Pakistani, maybe they're, you know, Egyptian, whatever it is, they're going to have a different perspective. To me, I'm a Muslim revert. My family are not Muslim, so I'm coming from the perspective of someone who's most of the family.
Di antara family dia, hanya dia nih yang Muslim. Jadi keluarga dia tuh enggak.
Lives in the UK, lives in London, and I'm a revert. So, you know, it's a bit different, but hopefully you enjoy the video. And also a disclaimer is that I have never lived in a Muslim country. This is purely based off what I've heard from other Muslims who have made hijrah, and also from what the research that I've done myself. So take it with a pinch of salt. It's obviously not going to be 100% accurate. And once again, I said, it's from my perspective. And on top of that, I definitely haven't included every single Muslim country. In fact, I've only touched on basically 6 countries or 6 regions. And yeah, so if I've missed out countries, I know countries like Jordan and maybe even Egypt, a lot of people say, oh yeah, it'd be nice to live there. I haven't included them just because they're not necessarily the most popular for hijrah. Oh, and also Turkey. I just haven't included it. But anyway, some low IQ TikTok brain said I take forever getting into my videos. So now the first country is Oman. So I know of a YouTuber, Mustafa. I've actually spoken to him briefly. We've spoken about social media, spoken a little bit about hijrah as well. And he always advocates for Oman. He lives there himself, and he's experienced, I think, living in various other countries. And he said, you know, this is a great place to live. And I agree largely. On the surface of things, it seems like a great place to live, you know. Obviously, pretty much everyone is Muslim. I think like 95% of the country is Muslim, alhamdulillah. Obviously, the weather, if you like it being really hot, you're gonna like that. The cost of living is relatively inexpensive, especially when compared to other Arab countries. And obviously, everyone speaks Arabic. So there's all of these positive things to say about Oman. But what I think most people don't really talk about too much are the negatives. And so from my perspective, as a revert from London, it's very, very far. I said my family lives in London. I want to visit 4 or 5 times a year. Now, I don't know what the cost of the flights are. If I had to guess, it would be somewhere between 500 and maybe 800 for a return flight. I'll take the cheapest, 500 times 5 times a year. That's 2,500 just for one person. Obviously, I'm married as well. So, 2,500 times 2 is £5,000 a year. It's just extortionate. Now, on top of this, I know I said it's 95% Muslim. I'm a Sunni Muslim and I'm proud of that, follow the Quran and Sunnah. Out of the 95% population, 45% are Sunni Muslim. The rest of the Muslims there are from different sects like Shia, and I think there's another one as well. For me personally, making hijrah, I would want to be surrounded by Muslims of the same view, or at least the bare minimum, the same sect of Islam, which has to be Sunni. So that really puts me off. And I know that obviously there may be neighborhoods, there may be specific areas where Sunnis stay, but I would like to think that the country I'm in is predominantly Muslim, Sunni Muslim. The next issue I want to talk about is the fact that it's quite unlikely that you will get a long-term visa. Now, obviously, you can get a visa maybe for a year or two, maybe you get one to do your business or whatever it is, or employment visa. So that would require you to have a business generating a certain amount of revenue maybe, or you'd have to seek employment in that country. Both of these things can be quite tricky, quite difficult. It basically means that unless you have these things, then your long-term future isn't secure in that country. And if I'm making hijrah, I want to know that at least for the next 5, ideally 10, 20 years, that I can put my roots down, I can buy property, I can do this and that, have children in school and all of that without thinking I'm going to have to move in 1 year's time, 2 years' time. And the final thing is that they obviously speak Arabic. I don't think English is super well widely spoken. Obviously, the richer people will definitely speak English. Now, I'm not rich, so I won't be staying with the rich people. I'll be staying in fairly normal neighborhoods. Will they speak English? I don't know. I really don't know. So this could be a negative or it could be a positive. But yeah, I think with most of the countries, most Muslim countries, you're going to have to compromise in terms of language. You're going to have to learn a new language. So it will definitely make your move a lot trickier. So after all of that, I'm going to score Oman as a B. All of these positives, it's great, it's beautiful, it's Islamic, all of these great things, but for me personally, from my perspective, there are a lot of negatives as well. So it would have been maybe an A, taking it down to a B. So next, I've basically grouped a few countries from North Africa together. So Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia as well. They're fairly similar. I've heard obviously some are slightly more liberal, then you have differences, whatever it is. But in terms of culture, in terms of language, all of these things, they're very, very similar. And they're all Sunni Muslim countries, so which is great. Alhamdulillah, that's great. On top of that, they're all close to Europe, so the cost of flying and the time taken as well isn't going to be a lot for someone who wants to visit Europe a lot. The weather is amazing, especially if you stay by the coast. You're literally in the Mediterranean Sea. It's very, very affordable. Like, I think I heard, or no, it's from my last video, the cost of staying in like the capital of Morocco, Rabat, it's like £300 per month as an average. Obviously, as a Westerner, you might be looking at a bit more just because you're used to a certain standard, maybe like £400 or £500 a month just for rent and bills, and then you got food and other things on top of that. But definitely under £1,000 a month for you and maybe your wife. Very, very affordable. And on top of that, my wife is Moroccan, so getting a visa there should be extremely easy. Now, the issues with these countries is that they are becoming a bit more westernized, a bit more modernized. I know specifically for Morocco and Tunisia. I've heard Algeria is a lot more conservative, mashallah, but yeah, there are some issues with that, especially in the big cities. But if you stay outside of those cities, then from what I've heard, it's still very, very practicing Sunni Islam. And now you have the language on top of that. So it's kind of like a stepping stone. Apparently, the Moroccan Arabic is a lot easier to learn than, say, Fusha or like other Arabic spoken in the Arabic world. So maybe you treat that as a stepping stone, and maybe you even treat these countries as a stepping stone if you want to move to, maybe like Saudi or UAE, or, well, not UAE, but like Saudi or other sort of Arabic countries. Maybe treat this as a stepping stone for the culture, the language, close proximity to Europe. All of these things. And because of that, I will give these countries a B. I need to do some more research, but I'd say a B. So next up is Malaysia and Indonesia. So they are very, very close in terms of geographical location. And I know the culture as well is somewhat similar. Malaysia is a bit more sort of up to date in terms of technology, and they're a lot closer to the Western sort of standard of living. And they have a lot more variety in terms of religion and ethnicities and all of these kinds of things. So they are separate. and I have had so many recommendations to go visit Malaysia and live there as well. You know, for both of these countries, there's a lot of positives. The weather, the food, the people, extremely hospitable and friendly. You know, some of the friendliest people in the world. A lot of them speak English, in particular Malaysia, a lot of them speak English. However, I do have some concerns, and I think that from what I've heard, and this isn't a coincidence, I've heard this a lot, that in these countries there is a lot of innovation when it comes to Islam. There's a lot of things that are like spoken about when it's not come from the Quran and Sunnah, and it's taken as fact or tradition or culture, whatever it is. I want to stay as far away from that as
possible.
Itu
loh guys, ajaran-ajaran sesat, jadi dia agak sedikit khawatir gitu loh.
Very far from London, so similar problem with Oman, but even more so, it's much further away. It'll be more expensive to get there. I forgot to mention, the affordability is roughly on par with North Africa. It's extremely cheap. It would cost me a fortune to have to fly home several times a year. It costs a lot of money. And the final reason, or the final issue I wanted to speak about, is that similarly to Oman as well, you can't guarantee your future in that country. Now, you can get, I think, like some kind of entrepreneur visa or something like that for 1 to 2 years. But then after that, you either have to leave, or I don't know the situation. Now, they've released this other type of visa, M something or other. Once again, need to do more research, but M something. And I've heard a lot of people talk about it. The only issue is that it's applicable to a lot of people, but not to me. So you have to be 30 years old, and you have to have a certain amount of capital, a certain amount of cash and income in order to invest into that country. And look, I don't have an issue with this. It makes a lot of sense of why they do this. They don't want just poor people pouring into the country. They want people who are actually going to benefit the country. Makes complete sense.
Jadi
I am not one of those people just because I'm younger than 30, I'm 26 years old, and I'm not rich. So I can't guarantee my future will be there sort of long term. And for these specific reasons, for me in particular, I would rate Malaysia specifically, and I guess Indonesia on top of that, maybe a B and a C. Now coming on to South Asia, so this would be like Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. So I'm gonna be honest with you, and this may come off as offensive. It may. I think a lot of people will understand where I'm coming from. I have no desire to live in any of these countries, and it's nothing to do with like the people of the country or anything like that. It's just, it just makes zero sense. Culturally, language-wise, and by the way, almost all of my friends are South Asian, and none of them want to live in South Asia. I think that speaks volumes. Now, there is natural beauty, there's very friendly people in these countries, all of that, but the issues that I've seen to do with innovation of Islam. You get some random uncles giving fatwa and making rulings, even though they're not very educated themselves. South Asia used to be home to so many well-known, reputable scholars, and now it's taken a turn. You know, you have like some deviant sects of Islam, you have innovation, you have all of this. And yeah, I just can't see myself living there. So for me, it's an F. I just have to be honest. Please don't hate me. Unless you class like Afghanistan as South Asia, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I would say Afghanistan is definitely steps above the rest of them, in my opinion, for me personally. But Afghanistan also comes with its own issues. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to live there either, to be honest. Next up is UAE. So I've spoken about this one before. UAE is a tricky one, because if you're coming from London, it seems like a great option if you can afford it. That is the key there, if you can afford it. It's not very affordable compared to other destinations. And on top of that, from what I hear, in many locations in the UAE, you still have the issue of haram being everywhere. Like especially, you know, in Dubai, in a lot of Dubai at least, you have a lot of haram there. It's basically like living in London. Now, would I choose London or Dubai? The answer is obvious. There's a lot more haram in London. However, if I'm going to make this move, I'm thinking about my family and I'm thinking about where I want my future to be. Long-term future, I don't think I can secure that in Dubai or UAE in general. So maybe in the future, if they come out with different types of visas and residency plans and all these things. Other than that, it's great. Everyone, or most people speak English. You have a lot of successful people living there. You have scholars living there. It's very sort of modern and technologically advanced and all of these great things. And you can learn Arabic there. Loads of good things to say about the UAE. However, for this stage of my life, is it affordable? Probably not. Is it the place that I want to put my roots down? Probably not. So I'd give it a solid B, to be honest. And I know it seems like I'm giving all the places a B, but the next one is my top choice for Muslim country to make hijrah to. And you might have guessed it already, Saudi Arabia. A lot of people wouldn't agree
Saudi
with this,
Arabia.
but I just don't see how you can disagree with it. I know there's always been controversy when it comes to the Palestine issue. However, this is the place where we go for Umrah and Hajj, and this country contains two of the holiest mosques for us. How would you not want to be there? This place, you know, you can learn to speak Arabic there, you can learn Islam there, it's technologically advanced as well, you know. All of these things, there's a lot of modesty there. Although, yeah, there may be some issues sort of creeping in with modernization and westernization. It's bound to happen. But these major things we haven't really seen yet, in at least at large. So I think for now, there's a lot of investment, a lot more sort of infrastructure being built. I think Saudi is an amazing place and I would love to make the move there. Is it affordable? I honestly don't know. Is it even feasible? Logistically, is it feasible? I don't know. I think it's very, very difficult to get a visa there unless you have employment there, or unless you're studying there, or unless you have a big business there. It's quite difficult. It's not like you can just get up and move there and just stay there long term. So that is probably the biggest issue. Otherwise, I think it's unlikely that I'm going to move there, at least in the near future. Inshallah, one day I can move there, perform Umrah several times a year, perform Hajj as well. It'll be a lot more affordable. But anyway, thank you for sitting through this pretty long video. Let me know what your thoughts are. Where is your top choice for making hijrah? Would you even want to make hijrah, or have you made hijrah? And give me your advice and all of your comments, and just let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Oke, nah jadi itulah alasan dia ya guys, kenapa dia menempatkan Malaysia itu di nomor 2. Bukan hanya Malaysia tapi Indonesia juga di nomor 2. Nah, untuk penilaian negara kita nih, dia memberikan B atau C katanya guys, karena mungkin dari video yang aku tangkap yang dia bicarakan selama kurang lebih 13 menitan ini, ada kekhawatiran dia terhadap agama-agama yang menyimpang yang ada di Malaysia dan juga yang ada di Indonesia. Tapi apapun itu kita hormati, karena itu adalah sudut pandang dia, karena itu adalah pendapat pribadi dia. Nah, mungkin dia sedikit meragukan negara kita guys untuk jangka panjang kehidupan dia bersama keluarganya. It's okay, kita hormati. Mungkin dia juga udah mempunyai pemikiran-pemikiran seperti yang dia katakan di video, dia lebih prepare tinggal jangka panjang itu adalah di Dubai. Jadi ada 5 negara yang dia bisa rekomendasikan lah untuk kita semua. Bagi yang ingin hijrah bisa datang ke 5 negara ini yang menurut dia terbaik lah, yang menurut dia juga oke untuk dijadikan tempat untuk berhijrah gitu guys. Untuk video kali ini cukup sekian. Bagi teman-teman yang suka sama video ini, jangan lupa untuk like, comment, dan subscribe, dan kita ketemu di next video. Bye bye. Assalamualaikum.